Okay. All right. It is 7:37 and I'm calling the meeting to order. We are at the approval of agenda. Any changes to the agenda? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's call to order. I think everybody's here, but let's go down the list just because we're on a recording tape. So down the list, we have Donna. Just say yes when I call your name. Donna?
Yes.
Got to be unmuted. Okay, thanks. Stephen?
Yes.
And Jerry Lee, you're muted, but yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and Phil?
Yes.
All right, and where's Mario? Mario?
I'm here.
Okay, did I get everybody? I don't think I missed anybody. Okay, can we have the approval of the agenda? Is there any changes to the agenda? I hear no comment on that. So does everybody approve the agenda? Let's just hear a yay or nay. Anybody who doesn't approve the agenda? Okay, no. All right, I'm just going to say the agenda is approved unanimously for the record.
Approve.
Pardon me?
I said approve
Approve.
if you needed confirmation.
Okay, thank you. The agenda is approved as is. Thank you, Donna. Okay, 7:39, approval of minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes?
Not for me, Kagi.
Okay, thank you, Mario. So I don't hear anything.
No changes.
I am, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Mayor. I just approved I moved to approve the minutes of the draft minutes from the May
Okay,
meeting.
all right. And I don't hear any nays. So thank you, Mario. We are going to say these are approved unanimously without change. Okay, you got that, Andrea?
Yes.
Okay, let's go on. Is there any presentations by residents? And the time is 7:40. We're right back on time. I hear nothing. So let's move to action item. And at 7:40, first action is the appointment of Lizzie Glidden Boyle to the Arboretum Committee. Kathy Benjamin did a fantastic job working with the Arboretum Committee and with Andrea and the landscaper to get Porcupine Woods, properly planted and netted for the cicadas. So she's been extended a couple times and her appointment is over as of the end of May. And Lizzie had volunteered before. I put her on hold and just said, we'll revisit and appoint you in June. So I'd like to go ahead and with the council's approval, appoint Lizzie to the Arboretum Committee.
This is Jerry Lee. I'd like to move that we approve the appointment.
Thank you. Everybody in favor?
Aye, yes.
Aye.
Okay, anybody against it?
Against Lizzie? That's crazy.
Is there any abstentions? Okay. This is motion is approved. Thanks, everybody. Let's go to the next item, approval of tree services contracts. Andrea?
Sure. Okay, so this is this occurred because our previous tree contractor, David Gregg, retired. So we wanted to competitively bid this. An RFP was posted for a little bit less than a month. There were 3 responses that were received and evaluated. And the response committee was me, or sorry, evaluation committee was me and consulting arborist Phil Normandy and Arboretum committee member Adam Darkins. And we are recommending that all 3 respondents are awarded contracts. Those respondents are Bartlett, Empire, and Save-A-Tree. And this will give the town flexibility, since we have to have tree contractors on our state DNR permit. This would allow us to have all three on our DNR permit, and then when we have specific work that needs to be done, we have the flexibility to bid that out to among those three contractors. So that I have this item on tonight to ask for council's approval for me to be able to move forward with getting those contracts.
So,
Great.
and
Is there any discussion?
yeah, quick
Go ahead,
discussion,
Mayor.
Mayor. Just so I'm clear. I like the idea of having multiple vendors. Is the idea behind it, you would submit an RP based on the work needed at that time, and each time they would have to submit another, like a rate?
No, so they've submitted their rates for the different types of work and for their hourly rate for their crew. And we have that information, and so we're able to use that. So if we have a specific kind of work that needs to be done, I'm thinking like for a particularly big job like Strathmore,
Mhm.
elevating Strathmore, we would probably want more than one bid for that. But for our normal routine work, I think this gives us the flexibility to learn which contractors we like to use for what kind of work, whether it's the quality of that contractor, whether it's the cost for that contractor. I don't think it would be reasonable to get 3 bids for every time that we have, 25 addresses that need to be looked at. But just the way it works with our blanket permit, it makes it a little just kind of a different layer, because we have to have them already pre-approved. So this gives us just kind of ultimate flexibility.
And they've all done work in the town before. I mean, I've seen Save a Tree, Bartlett.
Yeah, Save a Tree has done work in the town before. Empire was the contractor for the woods, and Bartlett removed a tree a couple of years ago. So they haven't done as much work here, but they all had references too. We checked all their references, so.
Okay, thanks, Andrea.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Yep, I've got a question. Did David Gregg's, I'll call it replacement, Salvador tree, I believe it was, did they do anything or?
I'm having a hard time hearing you. Can you repeat
Yeah.
that, Phil?
You're kind of muted there, yeah.
So did David Gregg's, I'll call it replacement, Salvador tree, did they end up putting anything in?
I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, did David Gregg, did he apply for this? Did someone?
No, whoever may have taken over their business.
No, yeah.
Okay.
So how many bids did, vendors did they bid
We
for?
had the 3 respondents. And
Okay,
I don't remember off the top of my head how many we reached out to. I think it may have been 4, but,
okay.
and then it was posted on email and then posted on our website as well.
Okay. Okay, Phil? I think we had ample announcement, solicitation time, and at least said you only need 2 for a simplified acquisition threshold of $250,000 or less. And this, we got 3. That's good.
This is Jerry Lee. I'd like to propose, move that we approve the tree service contracts.
Is there a second?
I second that, Charlie. That's
Okay,
Mario.
all in favor? Let me just hear the ayes, not the yays.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is there anybody saying no? Is there anybody abstaining? Okay, with all 5 council members, we have a unanimous vote. Thank you. Great. And then, are you ready, Andrea? We'll talk about the American Rescue Plan Act
Yep.
funding.
Yep, sounds
Go
good.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so the American Rescue Plan Act was signed into law in March, and that allocated this coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds. These are funds that are through the US Department of Treasury. Because we have a population of less than 50,000, we receive our funds through the state as pass-through. On June 4th, we got an email from the state telling us that we needed to accept these funds by June 30th. MML has recommended that all municipalities accept the funds because we can always return them later if we learn that we can't spend them in an eligible manner. They're also encouraging, I'd say even urging municipalities to take our time and figure out how we want to spend these funds. They need to be obligated by the end of December in 2024, but that's spent to cover obligations by the end of December in 2026. So we have some time. We don't have a final amount yet. Our last estimate that was given to us was 876,000. So we think we'll probably be, within that range, plus or minus. We know that it won't be more than 75% of our budget as of January of 2020. And in the first year, we'll receive half of that funding. And then 1 year later, we'll receive the other half of that funding. As far as what this can be spent on, Treasury released an interim final rule that's 150 pages. There's public comment that's being received right now through mid-July. Once that public comment has been received, then those guidelines will be more clear. I think we'll start seeing a little bit more guidance to municipalities. There are some categories right now that are within that guidance. The sort of Cliff's Notes version of those categories is public health, negative economic impacts caused by COVID, revenue loss, premium pay, and then water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. There's lots of fact sheets, webinars, FAQ docs, all that kind of stuff. We just created today a page on our website. So if you go to our website and then you go to the government tab and then operations and then projects, there's some links to get to the Treasury website and the MML website that has more resources here. So this is we're in the preliminary stages still. This is the time to start taking action now that the state has reached out to us. And the first step will be to accept the funds. The next step will obviously be after we receive this final guidance. Now we really know what we're talking about in terms of eligibility with some finality, more finality anyway. And in the meantime, we'll continue to participate in webinars and learn and understand what other municipalities are doing and see what MML and their lobbyists provide guidance on. And the town office will begin to develop with Mayor Kaki an initial list of kind of the universe of potential projects. And so this motion is to ask council to approve me to accept those funds on behalf of the town for the town's coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds.
Could I add something?
Yeah.
I just wanted to be clear with everybody that as Andrea said, we're not certain of the actual funding the town will receive, although we have an idea. But also more importantly is just because that's what we receive, it doesn't mean that we are going to be allowed to spend it all, because we have to have projects, eligible projects approved. So at some point we will be making this list, sharing it with all council and publicizing it with town residents and making sure that we're all on the same page. And we'll be submitting this for I guess, is it the state or feds that are going to review this? Because this is different from some of the other, not to get into the weeds on this, right, Andrea, but because we're a small town, less than 50,000 people, the money is going to be distributed, apportioned to the state by the feds, and the state is going to distribute it to us. So in some places, when you have a town or city with greater than 50,000 in population, they get their funding immediately, directly through the federal government. We're getting it through the state. So I guess we would be sending it to the state, right, Andrea? Whatever we.
That's right. Yeah, the email came from the state. Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
So that's kind of how that it will go. We don't have the timelines yet because Treasury, OMB, they haven't even figured out what's eligible yet or not. So
Right.
just wanted to warn everybody, we're not necessarily getting all the money that has been set aside for us.
That's fair, Mayor. Just to be clear, the motion is to obviously accept, which I was, unless I'm missing something.
Well, it's to let Andrea,
right. But you said, Andrea, that really we're talking. So we're in June of 21. Do you say this really won't? Sounds like we won't be able to even, regardless of the amount of money, Mayor, that we're talking about, whether it's $100 or $800,000, we really won't be able to know what we can spend it on, even begin to spend it until 2023?
No. So mid-July is when the comments on the interim guidance, on the interim rules, basically,
Okay,
when that feedback is due. And then they'll turn around and issue revised sort of final
okay,
guidance. And then at that point, then at least we'll have an understanding of what it can be spent on. We will probably receive the funding. Initially, they were giving a longer window. Now they're saying within 30 days of when the state receives it. The last state call that I had, they hadn't received it yet. I'm assuming since we got this email on June 4th, that they have now received the funds. So I would imagine that we will receive the funds sometime fairly soon. But obviously, we're going to want to wait for that guidance to really understand what we can spend it on.
Right, and I want to also add, so everybody understands the financial process in this. This is money through a grant. Does it sound familiar? It is. It's a federal grant. So it's not like it's put in our coffers, right? It's like an award letter. Doesn't mean we've actually got it, right? We can't start obligating against it, just like the SRTS, until the state has reviewed our initial list of eligible projects or deemed that they're eligible. So just want you to know, just because we get it doesn't mean we're spending it right away.
no, that makes sense, but I would imagine we can find enough projects within the guidelines to spend whatever money they're going to give to it eventually. I mean, I can't imagine we're going to leave money on the table. We'll find the right resources for this money.
I think what's happening is that
Confident.
there's a lot of I think skepticism from folks that have managed federal grants and contracts that it will be as lacking red tape or as not as restricted as they have been explaining it. And so I think that's part of what's happening, is because anytime that there's federal funds, there's also always certain regulations that are tied to how those funds get spent. So I think the way that it's being sort of messaged maybe in the media is a little different than how it may kind of play out with the final guidelines. So I'm sort of waiting to see those final guidelines, because there's groups like the National League of Cities and Maryland Municipal League and folks like that that are providing comment through this interim guidance, that we may see some different stuff than what we see now.
Okay.
Is this open for comment by the public or particular organizations that are invited only?
Oh, it's a notice of public rule, so it goes out to everybody and anybody.
Do we know where we can find it to look at it?
Yeah, if you go to that webpage that's now on the town's website, the link to Treasury, my guess is there would be something within that Treasury page that would tell you how to provide comment. Yeah. Or MML could probably tell you as well. I can connect you to Caleb there.
Okay. Typically, any comments that come back are also publicly shared if we're curious to see what comments do come in, because if it's like any grant that I've worked on, it needs to be publicly also distributed after the fact as to how they responded to that feedback that they received from the public.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right, Donna. Absolutely.
Exactly what happened on
Federal government
SRTS.
does.
Andrea, were you saying it would be more red tape than expected or less? red
I'm
tape than
saying that
expected?
I'm having spent a lot of time managing federal grants and contracts. I would be surprised, is maybe a better way to say it, if it remained as open as it's been discussed, as kind of non-restricted as it's been discussed.
Okay.
But we'll see. I mean, if it does remain as I don't know, maybe not using the right terminology here, but there's a lot more latitude to spend these funds than I've ever seen before. But at the same time, knowing that there are federal regulations that require certain things behind the scenes, I think things may seem like there's more latitude than there really is, because I would imagine some of these regulations will still be part of the process.
Oh, got it. Okay. So you're saying it might tighten up a little bit.
I
As it
just,
goes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's an audit, especially for depending on the amount spent. in a fiscal year, just like the SRTS, there's an audit. There'll be a federal audit on everybody. So, people will start getting a little worried.
Hmm. All right, so the motion
This
here, Andrea,
one.
is to accept the American Rescue Plan Act funding. And then obviously there's a lot of steps between today and whatever we get to spend it on and map it out. And we'll work collectively with the mayor and the town and the council to.
Got
Okay.
it.
Okay, well, then in that case, make a motion to accept the American Rescue Plan Act funding.
And I second it.
Could I ask one more question before we do that?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oops, okay.
Ask if we want to like set up a task force or something to manage our planning for this. I mean, we could accept it and still discuss that after, I guess, but.
Yeah, we actually
have a
talked
plan
about,
for how we would do this.
That's a good point. Jerry.
right. Jerry Lee, Andrea and I have talked about that, and we figure that's one of the things we're considering. We're also considering, depending on the size of projects that might get funded under this, whether or not to have individual council liaisons or leaders from the town, resident volunteers to actually help lead. It all depends on projects and what we get for those projects and the spending. But yeah, we're planning that. We haven't gotten there yet. Okay.
I had one question. I want to make sure I understood it correctly. It sounded like wait for the final ruling or the final comment period and the issuance of that guidance from federal government. And then the town will be looking at to see what types of projects may apply, just a vast list of what may apply to the town, and then decide within that. So say we get 50, but it really ends up being 3. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure I understood that right.
Yeah, and it's I think hard to know how much that guidance will change between now and the interim final guidance and the end final guidance. And on these webinars, they've been great at giving high level overviews of what's within the guidance, and the lobbyists have talked about how they think this is going to go, but it all still feels very malleable to me until we have that final guidance. Then we have a better idea, and even after that they may issue amendments or clarifying language or whatever, but at least we have something more to go off. Right now it's it's still interim. So
Great, thanks.
like a lot of the municipalities had questions here in Maryland about stormwater, right? Wanted to know the language right now related to stormwater is pretty limited on how it can be used, and it's not very clear. And even different lobbyists from different organizations are saying different things. So that's one area that I would be hoping we would get a lot more clarification on.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so Mayor, sorry, Mayor, sorry, just real quick. I just want to confirm that to Jerry Lee's point, that the idea of a task force, you discussed it internally with Andrea, and that's something that we could move forward with. To make sure that we're on the same page. Because I think it's a good idea. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a prudent way to go.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
And that way, Andrea isn't the main person who has to get all the emails. That's suggestions too. Okay. All
Sure.
right. So yeah, keep all that in your head. Okay. So the motion is on the table. It was seconded. And so what's left is everybody in favor? Please say yay.
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 Is there anybody who's saying no? Is there anybody who's abstaining? Okay. The motion is passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we go on. Andrea, are we ready?
Yes.
On to new business.
Yep. Let me just write the time down real quick.
Yeah, I have 8:01 going on 8:02.
Okay, my update will be very short, and then I'm going to kick it over to Ken Ingham, who's going to help provide an update on this. So just the very brief background is that in 2006, a longtime Garrett Park resident, Letitia Yandel, gifted her property at 11321 Kenilworth to the town. And it was gifted as a life estate, which means when she passes or at the time of her choosing, the property would become the town's, with the condition that it becomes a public park or a sanctuary for the preservation of native plants and wildlife. And that last part is recorded on a conservation easement from the town to the Garrett Park Conservation Trust. And Ken is the signatory on that document. So I asked if he could attend the meeting today and provide an update on sort of the latest developments with this. With that, I'll hand it over to Ken.
Can you hear me?
Ken.
You
Yep.
can. You're a little dull on that. It sounds a little bit muted. Are you able to speak more closely to the mic?
All right, I'll try to speak up a little bit. How's that?
Thank you. That's good, at least for me.
Okay, well, the lawyer that is in charge of Letitia's estate has engaged well, let's just say that there is the situation has reached the point where things are going to begin to happen because the lawyer has engaged a nonprofit firm by the name of Forklift. So the thing is to what is going to be done to the house. And so this company is going to try to salvage items that are of value that are in the house, and also materials recovered during a deconstruction of the house that could be recyclable. This process is envisioned to sort of take place sequentially in 4 stages, which the first of which would be the appraisal of the items that would be removed, and that could happen this week. And then they'll go in and remove smaller items like vases and books and dishes and so forth, and canned goods. There's some canned goods that they want to send to a food bank. And McNeil has requested that the town waive the donation rights so that Letitia can realize a benefit at tax time on the value of those items. And then the next would be to, I don't know if they've divided into small items and large items. So next comes the large items, which would be things like couches and furniture. And then finally, the deconstruction. And McNeil, that's, I think I didn't mention that she's the lawyer in charge, J.E. McNeil, has, I think, lined up another company, or maybe I should say that Forklift has lined up another contractor to then begin the deconstruction. So deconstruction as opposed to demolition. Now, if what I have always anticipated would happen would be that the town would get the house and then they would be responsible for the demolition, or if they chose deconstruction. But I think we're fortunate that this lawyer, who I think is, trying to execute Letitia's wishes, who she was always very much interested in conservation and things like that. So the idea of deconstructing the home and salvaging whatever they can, doors, windows, anything. The house is not in that great a shape, but apparently they see that there might be some value there. So that if things go according to what I see or understand to be the plan, which is not very, elaborated in a whole lot of detail, that the town would then be receiving, instead of the house, they'd be receiving sort of a hole in the ground, because I think they're going to stop short of trying to completely demolish or finish the job, so that the town may want to begin to think about moving fairly quickly, because the hole in the ground will probably constitute sort of a safety issue. And you don't want people falling in or nosing around there and getting hurt. So in order to avoid maybe having to put up fencing and so forth to keep people out of there, it might be, if possible, to move forward with the completion of it. And there is also an oil tank, a large sort of home heating oil tank
Oh.
that
Mhm.
that the forklift people don't want to deal with.
Right. Mhm.
And there may be some permits required here and there along the way. I've already mentioned in terms of town action items, this request for a waiver of any interest in the value of these items that are being removed. And then there also will need to be as I understand it, the town would provide McNeil with a document that she would sign relinquishing any further interest in the property. And one item that I would like to put in as a request, Andrea mentioned about how the remainder, so the idea of the park or playground possibly is that's confined to the developed area of the property. That is the area where the house is located and out to the street. The rest of the property is to be left in a sort of a natural state for hopefully we can restore it to a real natural state, because it's not very natural now. It's mostly filled up with bamboo in the back. And so at the time of this final demolition, there would presumably be some large equipment brought in, like dozers or backhoes or whatever. That would be an ideal time to go after the bamboo and try to get that bamboo out of there. And then after that, then the Garrett Park Conservation Trust is kind of sort of responsible for overseeing, what happens, and to ensuring that the town stays within the, agreement that's described in the easement. And the Garrett Park Conservation Trust, I think, would also, like to work with the town, like to have some say in how that remaining property, not so much the playground, but the natural part of it could be restored and possibly be the site for planting of native plants and trees. And I think there's an opportunity here to really have a little piece of native forest, if you will, right here in Garrett Park. And I'd like to also mention that the Garrett Park Conservation Trust is also looking at the possibility of trying to launch sort of a tree planting program in town, possibly in conjunction with the 125th anniversary that's coming up in 23, I guess. So just to plant a little seed about that. And,
Okay.
Okay.
Ken,
I
if
think
if
that's it.
if you're done with that update, that's an excellent brief of what's coming.
Mhm.
I want to be able to move this meeting on, but I have some specific questions, and I imagine some of the council members might too. So I'm going to go first. First and foremost, for understanding this trust, this house and property has been trusted to the town. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Secondly, the decision-making authority, is that the town or is that the Garrett Park Conservation Trust? Yes or no? Is it the town? Don't worry, I'm coming back. Go on.
Yeah.
Just it's the
Well,
town makes the
I would
final
say
decision, right?
It is.
Okay.
As long as they make the
Okay.
right decision.
Right, there you go. And thirdly, so with the Garrett Park Conservation Trust and possibly even the Arboretum Committee, we could work hand in hand to come up with some very practical, prudent, very nice, aesthetically designed area of planting and so forth for the, right? We might want some other input from residents. Fourth, I am not familiar that there was any plan for a playground. I don't know that there was anybody who really wanted a playground. I thought it was that the house would be raised and that would be subsumed within this very natural forest, woods like park, trail park setting. Is there, do you have an answer to that one?
Well, I don't think there was any obligation to have a park or a playground.
Okay,
Letitia,
where did you get the idea that there was a playground? Because that's the first I've heard of it, and I don't think even Jack Mandel, who bumps up against it, knows about that.
Jackie, that's been discussed for some time. That's been.
A playground?
I'm reading from the easement,
Okay,
paragraph B, item 1, the grantor may install facilities commonly associated with parks, for example, playground equipment in the area that was occupied, blah, blah, blah.
okay, that answers
So
the
that's an
question. Thank you.
option. It's an option.
Okay, all right. Timeline, was this, Ken, I'm sorry, did you give us a timeline when any of this activity could start, might be starting? Like
Well-
raising the house or deconstruction, that, so forth?
Well, I only know that in the email that I saw that the appraisal process was going to probably happen this week. And then after
Okay.
that, they'd be coming to take things out, little things and big things. And then the deconstruction, if that followed, you know, in a fairly soon, that could take some time, you know, that could go on for a couple of weeks or something. So I would say no, you know, at the earliest that the town would have to do something would probably be around a month or so.
Okay,
But
I
the
think-
town doesn't have to. The town has 3 years, according to the, you know, the easement language.
you know what I was
move on
thinking
this.
here, Ken, and I don't mean to hog this conversation, so, you know, let me know, council, if you have questions, but Ken, I'm wondering, given that this deconstruction activity could happen fairly soon, is there interest on your part or your advisory committee, the Garrett Park Trust, to kind of be the watchdog on this so that we're not, you know, trampling over all kinds of, you know, flora and trees and stuff when, you know, they're taking down the house? I mean, I'd love to have somebody kind of watching it.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Well, I think that could be arranged,
Okay,
although I think, you know, I mentioned some pretty substantial trampling that I would like to see happen.
okay. You would, okay. Yeah,
Right.
I got you, the bamboo, right.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they'll get that far, right? They're taking down the house. I don't know.
No,
about
not
the
the,
bamboo.
not the deconstruction people. Presumably the deconstruction people will just be,
Okay, but that's what's gonna happen first, I believe. So just to have you or somebody on with, from your committee with eyes on it. Let me go from
well,
there, right?
I will take personal responsibility for monitoring the situation when I'm here, and if I'm not here, I'll try to arrange to have someone else.
Appreciate that. That would be great. Thank you. Just don't want to hold you responsible for sure. Just that you're watching, make sure things aren't getting out of whack here for us, for the town. Thank you. Anybody else want to ask any questions of Ken?
Just make sure I understood. It sounds like sometime in the middle of this year, that house could be deconstructed, except for the tank will be left and the hole. And then that would be the town's responsibility to deal with the tank and the hole.
I think that's my understanding. Again, there's not a lot of documentation behind this. It's just a few emails back and forth.
Okay. Yes, we may just want to be slightly mobilized in case we had to do that as a safety precaution in a hurry.
I mean, I think it's a good thing that I think we're fortunate to have this person in charge because she seems quite sympathetic to the idea of conserving and doing this in a way that is actually probably going to save the town some hassle and some money. having
So,
to
yeah.
deal only with the hole in the ground and the tank.
Mhm.
Right, but I
Who
think,
would need- Oh, go ahead, Mario.
no, Jerry, go ahead. It's okay. I'll come back.
I was just wondering who needs to approve the request from the attorney that the town give up any right to the value of the donation? Is that something that Andrea could do administratively, or do we need town council approval?
According to the email, she requested that the town administrator or the mayor, and then she said, I said, is there some form that I could get them to sign? And she said, a note in the minutes would be adequate.
Okay.
So I have the impression you could do it right now, you could just. And it
So
would
one
appear in
I-
the minutes, and she just wants to make sure that, you're not going to come back and say, hey, who gave you the right to all this property? Whatever. I don't know.
So the question that Jerry Lee asked was about who would make the decision about relinquishing any interest in the donation of having any donated,
Right.
Materials during the
right?
construction. Yeah.
Right. Is that different than what I heard you say, Ken, when you were briefing us about relinquishing any interest in the property or the house? Is that the same thing you were saying?
No, that was
Okay.
an item, a separate item that.
Okay.
That's sort of like the final transfer.
So what does that mean, relinquishing interest in, and I didn't know if it was the property or the house, because we don't really want to relinquish our interest, right? I wasn't sure what you meant.
No, they would be relinquishing their interest.
Okay, good. All right, good enough. Okay, so as far as what was the statement you made, Ken, about the donation?
Let me see if I can just. McNeil has requested that the town waive the donation rights. The vases, the furniture, that stuff. So that Letitia might benefit from the charitable donation.
Okay. And I think if we have that discussed here now in the minutes, reflected in the minutes, I think we should make every attempt right now to give an answer.
Yeah.
So how does council feel about that?
I've got a question before you go. And
Sure, Phil, go ahead. Can you speak up? I don't know if it's my earbud that's not working or.
so I've got a statement on that. I would like that maybe somebody representing the archives or town historical group take a look at what's in there to see if there's anything that might be of significant value to the archives or to the town's history before it's all hauled away, because some stuff may mean nothing to somebody like Community Forklift, but on the other hand might fill in some great gaps of knowledge. So I would like to suggest that we put a caveat on that says that if there's something that appears to be of great value to the town's archives, history, something to that effect, that would be something the town would be interested in trying to retain.
It's a good point, though. What, Ken?
Um,
At what point are we allowed to even go into that house?
I would, I'm not up on all the legal stuff, but I mean, it would logically seem to me not until that final document is signed in which Letitia and her lawyer relinquish any further interest in the house, which is the only thing they have an interest in anyhow. And I assume that includes the belongings, so that
Right.
I don't really
That's where I was
understand
going
why.
next.
I didn't understand why she would need this sort of waiver that she asked for, because it seemed to me that everything in the house belongs to Letitia, and that
Right,
the
and
town
that's-
doesn't really have any
Yeah.
right to it anyhow.
So Phil, that's where I was going, Ken. Phil, I don't know that, everything in there is the property of Letitia, unless you're looking at something maybe architecturally, but it's still, I don't
Well,
know.
I think
I have
that it may be. I don't think that this person would be averse to having someone go in there and look for that purpose, at things, you know.
One second.
A
Mhm.
quick comment,
Go ahead,
if I
Donna.
may. It sounds like the reason that she would like this waiver, and understandably so, is to save herself some tax dollars, and that's totally legitimate.
Mhm.
Is there anything that precludes her from donating it to the town and still be deemed as a tax credit?
Good point.
The same way you do for, I don't know, Goodwill or other nonprofit? I'm not sure if there's a mechanism that's
Yeah, we don't have,
needed,
we're
or
not,
if we have something like
Mhm.
that. I'm not a lawyer.
we're not an established 301. See, so we don't.
501 too. Are we a 501?
501, whatever, what did I say?
301.
301? 501.
But
Anyway,
is the archive?
Well, I'm quite certain that Letitia got a big tax break by donating her
sure.
property to the town.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So
that-
if there was something of
That's-
value that the archive committee or somebody identified that they wanted to have for the town, I don't see why that couldn't be claimed just as well as the forklift folks.
Does it hurt to just ask Ken if it's possible and
Yeah,
then see
exactly.
what parameters and
That's
then,
what, we
Yeah.
can look into that, yeah,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay,
Andrea,
well,
can you do that, or can you take it? I know Donna is on the phone, Donna Calzone, if she lives right across from the property. I don't know if you have any interest as well, but let's sort this out. These are good questions. I don't think they necessarily have to be decided tonight, except for reflected in the minutes that everybody seems agreeable to waive any interest or waive any of their rights, and that they would not be held.
Yep. I think that's good. And Ken, we can talk tomorrow about moving forward and how that makes sense in terms of communications with you and me and JE. Probably all of us should be included on all the emails, so.
okay.
Okay, and is that oil tank in the basement, if there's a basement, or is it buried in the ground, or how's that work?
Allowed to be.
I think it is above ground and outside the house, right next to the side of the house.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
If it's there, that's not a problem. Okay, and I just got a note saying, yes, that's the case. So, okay. That ends that question.
Okay, so we're all in agreement to, I can't even get the wording right on this, to waive the donation. And that we agree that they'll be able to relinquish any interest after they empty the house, I guess, right? Oh, Donna, go ahead. Donna,
was
you
just
have your
gonna-
hand up.
Yeah, hey, I was just gonna say, oh, sorry, here we go. Having been in your role on many boards, Kaki, I wonder if, since the town believes that the property inside the house does not belong to it, that right? I mean, that seems to be the consensus, and I'm not a lawyer,
Belongs
but
to the owner. Yeah, it belongs to the owner. who said-
yeah, so maybe
Right.
maybe the statement should include that the council reaffirms its belief that the contents of the house belong to Letitia, and as such, she should do whatever she wants with them, and then make a request essentially for her agents to set aside or notify the town manager if there's anything found during the process that appears to be historical nature related to the town, as opposed to saying you're waiving donation rights, which I agree, since I work in a nonprofit, makes no sense.
Okay,
The fact that they would even ask to waive donation rights would almost imply to me that the town owns the contents, because there'd be no sense in waiving donation rights, because if you were the owner,
Right.
you would clear the stuff out.
Right, and I haven't seen the actual easement or anything, and it seems pretty simple. It either says the property and its contents, or it doesn't, right? I mean, if
Right.
yeah, I mean, it should be knowable, pretty knowable. But you can say something about, as lawyers like to say, for an abundance of caution, the town affirms Ms. Yandel's right to donate whatever she please from the contents of the house, and yada yada. So anyway, that's my thought. And Ken, I don't know if you saw the chat, but I'm happy to help with the supervision, because I'll be around the next month and a half.
Thank you.
Great. Does that take care of business on this subject for now?
I would temper it with, again, that we see if we can have a representative, whoever that might be, to go look at the items, because if we leave it up to somebody like Community Forklift, they may simply have people who are just trying to empty the house and not really care. And so it'd just be my suggestion that somebody get permission at some point that's convenient for everyone to walk through, take a look, and if there's nothing, there's nothing.
Not to be too touchy-feely, but perhaps we could just offer, should they would like anybody from the town to participate in that walkthrough, we'd be happy to do so. I mean, the woman is donating all this stuff. I think we need to be polite about it, if you don't mind my saying.
If we can
And do
time
you-
it right, it'd be nice if Claire was able to be there, but we'll have to see how the timing works out. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Ken, do you have any recollection, maybe even Donna Calzone, you do, how old this house is? It is, Dave Almy designed it, so I don't know if it's that old. And, again, it's whatever's inside the house, as far as I understand this, belongs to the owner. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but anyway.
May I make
Go
one
ahead.
more comment, Kaki, which is just to
Sure.
say I have been in the house in the last few months.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, after its resident passed away, and was with the lawyer's representative and helped her move some things out. I also, my partner and I, Debbie and I, have also been in the process of clearing out a home of similar size, of a very close friend who passed away in his home and was a hoarder. I can tell you that the process, having been in both homes, I suspect the process of going through all the stuff will take days. It is not a somebody shows up for 2 hours and looks for stuff exercise. And so I just would sort of caution, Phil, I hear you, but I would just caution us around expectations and the commitment that would be required to actually do what you're suggesting. There is a tremendous amount, there are a tremendous number of file cabinets and documents and books and boxes and things in the house that are, yeah.
Okay, so the way these things go with the archives, usually when people pass away or they move out of town, at some point, family, relatives, friends, whatever, they end up going through belongings and they say, oh, well, this might be really relevant or of historical value to the town. And they drop off these kind of boxes and file folders and stuff to our archives. But it's somebody else doing this. One, needing to get some kind of permission through the attorney McNeil or Letitia too, because I'm not sure, I guess she's still alive as far as I know, right? And then,
The
whether
lawyer
or
is
not there's
her
estate.
Power of attorney.
power of attorney. Yeah.
Okay, so going through the lawyer and then, whether somebody in town wants, like you mentioned Claire, but wanting to actually go into the house, if that's even allowable. I just, I don't know how much we're making a big deal out of this, if it's that necessary and time worthy.
I just think we get this, if we get the permission, let's just get the permission and read the agreement and let's see what's really there. And we just say that, you know, if we can get a small group, great. If nobody comes, then nobody comes, and that's that. But I would just say that we're at a juncture where we just make a decision that we wish to do this, and if somebody comes, great. And you know, off we go.
Okay. Well, I don't envision that this has to go back before town council. So if something, as we learn things, we can probably work this out administratively through email.
And there are
Whoever
no,
wants to do
there are
this.
no relatives or next of kin or anything that would be doing what you described earlier.
Yeah, actually, we know there are relatives because I met them, but they may have no interest and they don't live around here. That, as far as I know. I met them.
Just to be
Donna,
clear,
you probably met
Kathy,
them too, right?
no,
Or they
Kathy,
weren't.
just to be clear, you're talking about
Yeah.
relative Tom who passed away in the house.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yep, you're
Yeah.
right. Sorry for the confusion. Thanks for straightening me out.
There,
Right,
there
I'm
are
not talking about Letitia.
relatives. There are,
right.
I believe, nieces and nephews, and they have already been through via a Zoom call to identify the things that the family wanted.
Oh, okay. Okay, if you don't mind, I'm just aware of time. So it's 8:34. I think we have enough to have this reflected in the minutes that we're agreeable. There might be some more request or action by the town that we'll discuss with the attorney. And that is what we need to have in the minutes.
And do we have a copy of the agreement?
Yes. Yeah, we have a folder.
Oh, great. Okay.
We're good. Yep.
Is that satisfactory, Ken? You're the one who knows this.
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's go forward. Thank you, everybody. Okay, let's move to, what do we got now? So this didn't take us, this wasn't as brief as we had hoped, Town Manager Fox. So now we're going to go on to the gradual reopening of the town office and town hall, if you don't mind taking
Yes.
us through that quick.
Yep.
Maybe that one can be quick. I don't know.
Yep. Okay, so just wanted to bring this up because I think residents may have an interest, and I'm guessing council has an interest in this as well. For town hall, we will begin opening one day per weekend. And the thinking behind this is that we'll have the town hall professionally cleaned early in the week. And then we're also taking additional steps. We're purchasing an air purifier. There's a UVC light that's going in the HVAC. We've updated the rental agreement already. We've spoken with the attorney. Elizabeth today sent out a survey to some of our regular renters just to ask them how they feel about this, if they feel like it needs to be professionally cleaned every time before they're there, if they feel comfortable, if somebody rented it in between having it professionally cleaned. So we assume that this will evolve over time, but I just wanted to kind of bring this up since we've been talking about everything coronavirus evolving as things evolve, right? All of our plans evolving. So I wanted to bring this up here. As it relates to public meetings, I reached out to the point of contact at the county who is working on overseeing the physical changes that are taking place there where the county council meets. And I want to learn from them in terms of what they're doing and see if that's something that we would need to do here, how they're handling, if public will be invited to the meeting. I think they're doing a hybrid. So I want to talk to them and figure out what they're doing. So I expect to have more information on that for you at some point. They're not meeting again in person until September. And for us, just as a reminder, we have August off anyway.
Recess.
So we may be on a similar timeline. For the town office, maybe I'll stop there and see if there's any questions about town hall before I go to the town office.
So the question before council really is it okay to just go ahead and let the town hall be used once a week on a weekend?
Yeah, I think I was thinking of it as sort of a information item and to hear feedback, or if you're hearing a lot of
Okay.
feedback from residents. We haven't heard a lot from residents, which is part of why we sent out a survey today to ask folks. So
Okay.
it's more of a discussion point, yeah.
Sure.
Fine,
Just so everybody knows, it's revenue bearing, so that's another
right. No,
consideration.
I emailed, full disclosure, I emailed Andrea. Quite frankly, I was surprised we're only doing it once a week. I might be a voice of dissent here in Garrett Park. I think the science now shows if you're vaccinated, you can be inside and outside without a mask. I don't know why we're holding it to once a week if there's a demand for more. But Andrea explained it. We'll crawl before we walk, before we run. So I'm fine with that. So.
And it does take
Might-
the
Mhm.
administrative side behind it too. It takes some time. Nobody's been in there, so it hasn't been cleaned in a while. Also, Frank normally cleans it. He's been out with a hurt back. So some of that stuff also just has to.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't mean,
just
I
the
don't,
normal churn of getting stuff going
yeah,
again.
yeah. I'm talking about over the course of months, not
Yeah.
this month.
I think it's a good initial first step. Once a week, it could only last a month, Mario. Then they'll do
Yeah.
2 times a week, and then it's just like everything else. Everything
Right.
is fully open.
No, it's fine.
Interesting to see what the
Andrea,
demand
did
looks like.
you-
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Andrea, did you look into the availability of professional cleaning services such that we could have something on retainer to actually make it open twice a weekend?
Yeah, we are, we've talked with a couple of folks, and I reached out to one of the other towns to see who they're using and how they're handling it. So we're like in the middle of discussions with a company right now too. I think it would, if we have, the weekend would probably be more like events, and then during the week would be more like our regular renters. So that's why I was pretty curious to hear what our regular renters thought, if,
Mhm.
yoga or Tai Chi or something, if
Mhm.
they think their clients would feel comfortable and would want to come back, if they would feel comfortable coming back, or what do they need to come back? So that sort of gives us the next level of information that we'd need.
Well,
I'm
we-
surprised
That's a
that
good
there aren't regulations, or at least direction at the state or county level that kind of give guidelines or something.
For if you're vaccinated, I mean, sort of what Mario said, if you're vaccinated, it's sort of, the county hasn't lifted any restrictions. They have restrictions still for certain types of facilities. I have it somewhere in front of me, but healthcare, childcare, nursing homes, that kind of thing. But
Mhm.
for something like this, the town wouldn't have any restrictions.
What's the cost going to be for professionally cleaning it each time?
Right, that's part of what we're in the middle of discussions right now. So they won't, we have an estimate, but they won't have a firm price for us until they've cleaned it once and have an idea of what it's gonna be like. It's a town hall, right? So it's a little bit different to try to describe versus like a house.
I would think this would also meet the eligibility requirement for.
That's-
Mhm.
Right, right.
art.
Yep, that's another piece of this.
Although if there's no restrictions or guidelines on restrictions of because of now that everything's open, that
Right.
also would mean that there is no restrictions or guidelines on how something is cleaned,
Yeah.
which kind of makes it subjective as well.
Right, so I know that the county's been covering our disinfecting in Penn Place, right? And we stopped doing it in the town office. We're continuing to do it in the post office right now. But that's been reimbursed and will be reimbursed through, I don't know, sometime this fall. But I don't know if that will change as we receive our federal funding, right? So it's all sort of in flux. But one of the questions we asked for our regular renters was, if you felt like you needed the town hall to be cleaned more often to be comfortable using that space, I don't remember how we phrased it, but would you be open to paying extra to cover that cost, basically to help subsidize that? So we'll see sort of where people are at.
Thank you, Andrea.
Yep. And then for the town office, so going forward, we're proposing opening on Mondays and Thursdays to start, and this is because the office is cleaned already on Tuesdays and Fridays as just part of our normal plan. We would require masks from visitors because we don't have a way of knowing who's vaccinated and who's not. And we would ask residents to please let Elizabeth know if they're planning to drop by, much like in the before times. We won't know if we're on a call, if we're out at lunch or whatever. So to best be able to serve residents, that would help us. This will also help us space out when residents come in. So if we know that several people are dropping by at lunch, we might, let those folks know they might want to come later in the day or something. In terms of staff, all staff and Mayor Kaki are vaccinated. In the office, we have air purifiers. The Penn Place HVAC has specific filters and a UVC light. And this is again something that we expect will evolve over time. We're being cautious because some of us, myself included, especially me, have family members that aren't vaccinated. So I'm just not comfortable having folks come in yet without masks on. So that's where we're at for the town office. Any questions on that?
Sounds like you covered it well. Thank you, Andrea.
Yep, you bet.
Just before I just wanted to mention there were a couple chat things on the about the Yendel property. First, Stephen confirmed that the house was built in 47, just because I asked. Thank you, Stephen. And I also want to make recognition of Naveed. Naveed, I'm not a good, I don't pronounce the last name well, but Naveed is a new resident to Garrett Park with his wife and children, and he lives right next door. He took the Spinard and Rye property. He bought that. So he's directly across from Lake Donna Calajon and the maze. So, and behind Ken. So welcome, Naveed.
Thank you. Anything I can help to, please let me know.
Sure. So Ken, you want to reach out to Naveed? All right, let's move on. I'm going to hope that what I bring up is quick and it doesn't have to take a lot of discussion because it doesn't have a real timeline. I wanted to bring up the idea again of using FlexiPave, but at this point, it would be just the free demonstration project that Noble Atkins and Capital Solutions had given to us a few years ago. And they have told me that the free offer is still on the table. And if anybody, it was for 50 feet of the product itself, as well as the installation. So I just wanted to get your sense. I'd like to go ahead. I'd like to proceed with starting to coordinate just the communication with that and a timeline. I know we don't have a place picked out, but I want to go ahead and just start communicating with Capital Solutions. So I know there was some pushback, but it had more to do with, I think, the concern about delaying anything with the SRTS project, which was, so this was back in 2018 for some of you new members who don't know the history of this this conversation that came up, but we're beyond that now. We still have this as a free donation, free gift, and I'd love for the town to experience it. This is FlexiPave made of aggregate stone and crushed aggregate stone with rubber. And it has a lot of ecological benefits, environmental benefits. And it's only 50 feet. So that's kind of where we are with this. I don't want to get into it too much if you don't mind, unless you really want to. We could have this discussion for a July meeting if you want. I just wanted to bring to your attention. And if you were all okay, I would reach out and say, hey, I reach out to Noble and just say, hey, the town is now really behind this, so we'd like to start talking to you. That's kind of where I'm at with this. Yeah, Donna, go ahead.
I know a piece of sidewalk that could use it.
Where would that be?
First person to guess, I'll give you 5 cents.
Okay. Anyway, does anybody have a problem with me going out, reaching back and saying, okay, and reaching out to Noble?
And by the way, I'm kind of serious.
I bet you are. I think there have been a few people who've approached me and said, there's places, and that's not to forego and somebody else mentioned this to me, a resident, not to forego a priority of fixing the sidewalk, the asphalt sidewalk along Waverly as it comes down from the Triangle of Kenilworth to meet Montrose, as well as the sidewalk, asphalt sidewalk along Oxford that is situated between Montrose and Kenilworth. So those are two still very big high priorities. I think all council members and me agree on. So I'm not trying to sidestep that at all.
I think it was last year that council voice voted, I think, for supporting 3 different sidewalks, replacing those 2 asphalt ones and studying the extension to Kenilworth to Argyle as well.
I think it was 2019, but yes.
Yeah, no, I think it was, no,
That
it was
was when we
last,
had
last
the
spring. It was last spring,
Mhm.
2020.
So Kathy, if you were to initiate conversations with the donator, when would it or review in terms of accepting this donation or detail?
Well,
At what stage would it come?
I
I'm
think,
looking for stages.
yeah, I don't know because I haven't gone that far. I mean, I don't know, they might not have, I don't know what their schedule is. I mean, they might say, well, we can be looking at something, in the fall, which, definitely gives us, I mean, whatever happens here, we still need a discussion of where to place it. I have one idea, one place that I'm very interested in. But I recognize that's not just on me, but it is a free demonstration project. So anyway, at Jerry Lee, I don't have a, all I can say is if they say yes and okay, they want a timeline even from us, I can get back to you guys, or do you guys have I don't mean to be so informal. Do you council members have some, concern of when this could happen or what should happen? And if you do, then I definitely come back. If you're saying, just give them give Capital Solutions a ballpark schedule, Khaki, and then let us know what they think they can do, then I'd come back again to you all. So.
Well, I just think it would be good to maybe get a briefing of more about what this is and what the main.
Oh my God.
of it
Okay.
are.
Right. So we have had that, exhausted
How about we
back
just
in the
send it
spring
out,
of 2018. What'd you say, Donna?
Maybe that presentation can just be sent out for people to look at their leisure. Just to
Yeah,
remind
because
them if
they
necessary.
came out. They
Yeah, there
came
was a
out.
meeting. Yeah.
There was a lot of
But-
discussion,
but-
and residents who,
Right, that was your
excuse
view,
me,
Kathy.
excuse me.
I think we're starting from
Right.
scratch.
No, well, we're not for, as far as the timing goes here, time goes for the company. The other thing is we've got residents in town who know this product inside and out, and I'd be happy to reach out to them and have them come and discuss it if you'd like. That is definitely probably an optimal way to go. Because we had the full bore presentation. I even still have samples. And then, after that presentation, there were lots of, discussion by residents about this who know the product. And we visited sites, we went to 3 different sites. Stephen went to one, Arlington National Cemetery I went to, Tacoma Park. Anyway, I don't want to beat this to death right now. I just wanted to, I'm thinking of this. I'd like to do this. I'd like to start reaching out. And as long as I'm not hearing a big no, I will go that way and then get back to you on whatever the timeline is or anything else. And we certainly can set up something for one of the residents, Jerry Lee, to come and talk if you'd like to hear about it.
Yeah, I just would like to see more information put out about it. That's all.
Mhm.
I don't have anything against
Okay,
it. I just
sure.
want-
I'm sure there's a lot probably in the town records. Go ahead.
Khaki, Mayor, there must be something like, there must be a website, a link or something just for the
There
product. And then,
Yeah.
and if
There
you,
is,
and if you just give us the address of the resident in town, generally, and I can happy to walk over.
Yeah,
and
John
look at it.
Cherky, John
then-
Cherky. These are-
It's only 50 feet. So my issue is, are we ever going to agree on where that 50 feet's going to go? I don't know.
Exactly.
So that's
Can
my
you
fear.
convince them to do a tennis court, maybe? Then they could
50
come
feet
to our
It's
town.
not very much. I mean,
No, 50 feet isn't much, which is why we're like,
No, it's not.
that's like nothing. What
But-
50 feet do we possibly have
Right.
that could even be
Uh,
benefited
there's
from
a few.
it?
There's a
Yeah.
few people who know where that 50 feet could go.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I
Okay.
have an idea on one. It's one that Kaki and I talked about before. There's even a section of that Oxford asphalt one where it goes around a tree that might be a good test spot for it, just to kind of see if it does what's it's expected to do as far as going over tree roots without being pushed up. And that one doesn't
So where
involve any.
you're just putting something out now, Stephen, and I don't really want to get into that because I
Okay,
have
yeah,
one that
sorry.
is not that spot, and I
Yeah.
I don't want to start introducing some places and then we have
Yeah,
people
I hear you. Yeah,
going back and forth. Okay.
yeah,
All right, but thanks. We'll be talking about it.
yeah.
All
It would
right,
be good to
if
just have
it's
it in your
okay with,
arsenal.
yeah, if it's okay, I'm gonna go ahead and reach out to them and say we're interested, the council's interested. Heck, Jerry Lee, to even, appease you, if they want to come back out, I'll ask them. Okay? It's just that it was done really in depth just a few years ago. Anyway, okay, I'll check on that. John Cherky is the person who really was quite involved with all of us at the time. And that was with Gene Swearingen and me and some others. So you know where he lives? He's up on Claremont Avenue next to Susie Gifford. In case you didn't know. He's one of your neighbors there, Donna?
Oh, I
John
didn't even know
Cherky?
that.
Yeah, around
Yeah.
the corner.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'll go have to
And
look into
Karen.
it.
Okay, thank you. I'll be in touch. Okay, let's, oh gosh, let's go. How quickly can we make this all? This is 5 and 9 right now. Town updates. Gee, this is a big one though. Go ahead, Jerry Lee, if you're ready to tell us about the small cell 5G.
Sure, I spoke with staff from County Council member Friedson staff, and the zoning text amendment 19-07 on small cell towers is expected to be put on the full council agenda perhaps at the end of June or early July. And before that time, the new text, the updated text should be posted publicly, well, will be posted publicly for review. It's not currently available. All that's currently available is the staff report, which was discussed at a March 10 work session of the Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee. And so the expectation is that they have been making some small adjustments to the original zoning text amendment. The court ruled back in August, essentially against most of the local communities that were fighting the FCC ruling. They essentially upheld most of the FCC rulings. So now the county is in a position to move forward based on the FCC directives and the court's upholding of those. So that's really the update. We don't have the updated text, but the staff report is available. We can post that link for people so they can read what the staff report said. I think the most concerning part of that is that the original draft had a 60-foot setback for residential areas, and the staff recommended a 30-foot setback in residential areas. So that would be a smaller setback. So that's the update. And what we can do is make sure that as soon as that gets posted by the county, we can send that out on all the listservs.
Set back a distance from any house or
From any building, 30
building? Okay.
building. And it's
Yeah.
supposed to be on existing poles or a replacement of an existing pole.
Okay. Thanks.
And so right now, we already know that some of these 5G towers, receivers have been placed on poles that are within 25 feet of a house. And we also know that they have been placed on what was supposed to be maybe a 20-foot high pole, and it ended up being a 65-foot pole. So there is a lot of things already happening, and the county has told us that they are not going to be regulating the poles. Not that they do anyway, even though they're supposed to, I guess. Right, Jerry Lee, did you hear that?
Their process that they're trying to update and regulate is for the approval of the placement, but there has been a lot of concern expressed about the lack of enforcement and follow-up.
Right. Right. Okay, anybody else? Is there go ahead, Donna.
So I may not have, I don't have all the details. I did read the emails and the discussion back and forth earlier this evening. So just the lack of oversight, I guess, seems to be the main concern here. Any other concerns that we possibly could have? The world's moving forward. We need to move at least these parts with it. Just as an aside, I often, as soon as I enter Garrett Park, I lose signal every single time. So it's almost like a running gag with our family. Oh, we're in the, we come up with some strange theory or make up a story of why that is. But I'm sure I'm not the only one who experiences that and probably would see the benefits of more connection. But that doesn't mean, obviously I don't know everything, and I definitely can't foresee all the negative aspects. So besides the oversight, is there anything else that should be taken into consideration or we should think about or can have or would have comments on?
Well, it seems like that distance to residential buildings is something that the town could comment on when the time comes.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of municipal.
Has already ruled that local governments cannot regulate based on aesthetics.
Okay. Okay.
Well,
And it's 30 feet. Maybe it sounds
house.
stupid, but 30 feet up, down, sideways, doesn't matter. I mean, do they have regulations of what that means?
Horizontal from the building.
Okay. Sorry if that was a dumb question. I don't know.
No, not at all.
Especially
At one point we had pushed for 60 feet.
Yeah,
And so they've ignored that. They're not going to go with the 60 feet.
yeah, 30
They're
feet.
going with
It's short.
30. And we already know they're inside of that because we have evidence. We have photographs and stuff. So
In the town or in the
not
county?
in the town, but in the
Yeah.
county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
25 feet puts them pretty much anywhere they want in town. 60 feet probably locks out a lot of town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But did I just hear you say, Jerry Lee, that we can't as a town enforce the aesthetic? Because remember that was so Donna,
No,
give me a
that was a
moment,
very
Jerry Lee.
specific part. Yeah, that was a specific,
Okay.
the FCC directive.
Okay, give me a moment.
Language and
Donna, all right, give me a moment. Donna, I think it was it was in 2019, the council at the time, Garrett Park, was involved in looking over the zoning rules, the regulation rules, FCC. And we actually put in a lot of comments that we sent forward. And we included, and I believe, and Andrea can correct me, or Jerry Lee, we have either, I think, a resolution, at least we passed, about our expectations of this, the communication, the utilities in our town. We revised it. And what we said we wanted to be able to do, to make these poles much more aesthetically looking, that they don't just pop out in everybody's vision immediately, that
It
kind
may
of
be
thing.
it's an ordinance or resolution. I'd have to look, but yes, we
Okay.
have an official document. Yeah.
That's something we might want to just resurrect, Andrea, and just send it to all council, or make sure it's posted with whatever links we have now on the latest, 19-07. So town residents also can see it. but that might help answer some of your questions, because we did a lot of work on it, and Phil was involved in that at the time, Phil Schultz, so, and Jerry Lee's taken this on for us now, so appreciate that.
Thank you.
So Jerry Lee, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure some council members who weren't there at the time knew about this other work that had been happening in the town.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you.
So a couple of questions. First is, do they still have this broad or one-stop type or package approval where basically if you're within a quarter mile of like a center point, they can take and bundle all the applications and approve them as one spot, as one shot?
Phil, I'm not sure because we haven't seen the updated ZTA. I would suspect that they have not changed that, but I don't know.
Okay. And the second thing is, if we can't enforce some of this stuff, we may have to change the ordinance after we look at it, because some of it did revolve around aesthetics. And
Sure do.
it's, I remember writing the thing, and it was, I think, January of 2019 that we passed it, because we were under the gun to get something out, or we couldn't do anything. And anyhow,
I think you're right.
we have to revisit that thing if we can't do anything unless there's some type of aesthetic that we can use.
Yeah, that you remember there were other towns, local towns in the county who all also wrote letters of concern and the recommendations if it did go forward, what we wanted to see. So there were a bunch of us all on the same page. Don't know that much of it got incorporated in this
Yeah,
current
let
one.
me read the court, a summary of the court thing that I read. There may be some, what do you call it? They did actually give some additional room on the aesthetics, so we'll have to see how that plays out. Maybe there is more room there after the court ruling.
So if there's a hearing, will you let us know? I'm sure Andrea will be on top of it too, but Jerry Lee, let us know so that residents who, I know there's been residents in the area in town who were also concerned about this, the small wireless, the 5G wireless towers. So let us know. So people who want to, they can go and, either speak or just attend, listen.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on, try to get the word out. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, what do we have next on the update? All right. Phil, can you give us an update on stormwater?
Yes. Okay, so stormwater.
It's 9:05.
We are talking specifically here about Rokeby and the erosion control and crossing over the creek. So as you may recall from past discussions, the project was broken into three pieces. One was to do a topographic survey, and that is now complete, and it's been integrated into drawings. The second piece was to put together the package for bid to do the erosion control. And then the third piece would be the crossing over the creek. At this point, we've basically working with Andrea and our Jason Azar, who is our civil engineer, and Chuck Berry. We've all pretty much come to agreement on everything that needs to be done. Jason has updated the packages, the bid package and the drawings. Now we just need the mayor to review it. And then from that point, we'll have to put it out to bid. We're thinking probably 4 weeks or more because there's a few things in there, like a lot of handwork that has to be done. And we also had mentioned that any of the potential contractors need to come to the site and actually take a look at the work to understand what they're getting into. We've come up with an estimate, which would be somewhere between 50,000 and 110,000 to do that portion. And what we'd like to do at this point is to prevent any delays is get authorization to spend up to 110,000, preferably less, to start work as soon as we get all the bids secured and everything is taken care of and signed off.
That's phase 2, Phil.
That's phase 2.
So this is just the stormwater mitigation behind the properties, right? This doesn't involve the bike path yet.
Correct.
Okay. Just for the public listening in, I don't want anybody quoting up to 125 anyway. Especially, please, Ed, don't mention the specific number. We're looking for council just to allow a range. And as long as we're in that range, that was really the request.
Really, yeah. I mean, in a
Yeah, we don't want to give a top number and then have every contractor come in and give us that top number. So that's why I don't want it quoted specifically like that. So just making that clear to everybody. Okay.
Out of curiosity, is it something where we could have gotten an engineer's estimate via email and then not talked about the numbers at all today? That way we could have given you, I'm curious if that works, or is that?
We have an engineer's estimate that's somewhat old, but is within that range. And so, yes, I suppose I could have done it the other way of just putting out what the engineer's estimate is.
And maybe we could just do that for phase 3. That way we don't have this, we don't have to worry about numbers, but like we would all know what it is.
So one of the things that's important to keep in mind is that what you all had approved in the budget is that we have that line item with the sufficient funds. So as long as it's there and it was approved on by you all, then basically we are allowed to spend it. Where we really need to have the vote or the approval is to make the actual award, which obligates the money. So with, due deference to council, to all council members, Phil is asking, that we go ahead and put the bid out. We already have the money, in the line item. So it's really, it's a deference to you all, but the actual vote would be something that we may need to talk about, because we're not going to be here in August if we come down to within the range, right?
So we're asking for a vote tonight to make a motion to approve.
Well,
Approve, put it out the bid, basically.
well,
Expecting a range.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Phil. You speak. I'll clarify if I have to, unless I'm making a mess.
What the thought was that we would actually take a vote to say that if we were within the range that we had, that we would have authority, that the town would have authority by the mayor and town manager to go ahead and sign off the contract and start the work without having to come back for another vote or hold a special meeting.
And the reason for that is the timing, because by the time we get the bids back, and if a selection is made even towards, I guess, the end of July, work would be able to start, or the contract could be signed anywhere at the end of July, beginning of August, but we're in recess through August. So the point here is that we wouldn't want to have to wait if we could move on, if we could move ahead. Is that right? Am I getting it right?
Correct.
Yeah. So if that's the case, if we're talking about a motion to, as long as within the budget that's been set aside, then that's fine. Obviously, anything above that, we have to have another conversation, but we have to make sure that that's very clear. Because I agree, the folks down in the Rokeby here, they've been waiting a long time to get this going. So
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with, you're right. There's a chance we're gonna miss, theoretically, you can go all the way to September before you vote on this again. So I'm fine with that. I just want to be clear that we're staying within the context of the budget number. And that if there's something where it goes beyond that, what's the process? Well, I want to make sure that we have that conversation. But you feel confident, Phil, it's not going to go beyond the number that we set aside in the budget?
Yes, I agree. Yes, I feel confident it won't. And if for some odd reason it did, then we wouldn't sign off on the contract documents and we'd have to.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, Andrea or Phil will let us know. Can I ask a quick question? Is this a sealed bid?
Yes.
It is, okay. Ugh.
I
All
mean,
right.
let's put it this way, you get to review you're the next person to review the documents because Chuck and I and Jason have all looked through everything. Yes, and Andrea, I believe she looked through everything. So if you needed to change that, otherwise, yeah, we've got it as a sealed bid.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, well, if we're making a motion for the authorization to put the bid out and work within the framework of the budget that was set aside for the stormwater management, then I say I make a motion to move forward. I'm not sure if I had the right language, Mayor, but I'm trying to get it right. So
That's good enough for me. Anybody who's uncomfortable with that? Okay, thank you. I think, Phil, we have the marching orders. Thank you, everybody. And we
Vote.
certainly will let you know if the bid comes over that. We'll definitely let you know what the actual bid, whatever we actually award, we will let you know as long as it's under.
And I would just add the usual would apply. Obviously, we have Ron look at anything before we sign anything, so.
Oh.
Our
Yeah,
contract.
and right, and all this is really procurement sensitive, so there's limitations of what can be said.
does this need to be second or supported? Or I'm not sure if this is, I don't know.
It's not a true action item.
Okay. Okay.
I think if we've got everybody now, just if everybody's in agreement, we'll just make that on the record, for the record. If that, you okay
Yeah.
with that?
I'm not sure I understand, because I guess if we had it out for bid and already knew what was going to be the recommended bid, wouldn't that normally go to the council for a vote? Because that would be well above the procurement policy threshold that would require a
Well,
council vote. Yeah. So it's
Right.
like we're kind of
and
doing it blind a little bit, which
A little bit, but you're taking, our word that we aren't going to do anything over what's already been budgeted.
Yeah.
The other
guess-
thing I'm just gonna say it, and I know I said it before, and I know, some people might roll their eyes, but what you just referred to, Stephen, is a policy document that is almost 20 freaking years old. It doesn't apply. So I know,
Oh, it does apply. It's
it
a
was
law.
set-
I think it should be updated.
well,
but,
no, it was, I don't know if it was a law, it was a resolution. Was it a ordinance? I don't know. Maybe it was piggybacked as a piece of paper, but it's so inefficient and irrelevant, but I appreciate the point. Yeah.
I would completely disagree. It's irrelevant. I think we should update it. I think you got a good point there, but I don't think
We
we should
are-
skirt around that. And I think we've made a habit of doing that. So I think that should be picked up.
Bureaucracy. Let's move on. Okay. Andrea and I have definitely talked about it, Stephen. We're gonna get that fixed. I
Art,
think we have
don't-
Debbie working. Debbie's gonna work on that, I believe, right?
Fix what?
Do we not need
The
a vote?
policy. She's gonna revise a policy.
So the council would have to review and approve a revised one, which I think would make sense, but so we'd have to do that.
Okay,
I'm not
don't,
gonna have a discussion on this right now. What?
don't need to have a vote anyway to authorize. I mean,
Well, that's what Stephen's kind of asking, if I'm jumping to read your mind, Phil, I'm sorry. You're asking that we actually vote, that the council votes to approve the signing of a contract if it's within the spending authority already approved by council. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. You want to do it? We can do it. Want us, go ahead. Somebody raise the motion, somebody second.
Mario.
Okay,
offered-
is that all right, Stephen? We'll do it this way.
Yeah, I mean,
Because we're
I think
saying
we
it's
should
going to be
fix-
within this
yeah,
anyway, so
Yeah.
we're not,
Yeah, I think we should fix the issue for the long term, but I think for now,
yeah.
I'd rather not push this project off. As long as we can stay
Yeah.
within a reasonable range, I'd like to get it done. So
And just to clarify, the language in the contracting procedures document refers to council approval. So it's vague that way, but I think we're fine to continue how we were. Just wanted to clarify on that point, that it's a procedures document and mentions approval, not necessarily a vote.
Okay,
Okay.
I don't
But I
think.
think we have unanimous, go ahead. All right, somebody make a motion, somebody second it, and we'll record it for the record.
Well, the motion was made, Kaki, so we need
Thank
some.
you. Okay, second, is there a
I'll
second?
second it.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, is everybody in favor?
Aye.
Just hear a yay at least, and then I'll come back.
Yay.
Okay. Is there anybody against? Is there anybody abstaining? Okay, good. Thank you, everybody. So approved. We will be in touch with you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, what do we got next? Stephen, how's the town hall? People are asking.
Yeah, we're
People
working
are
on the
asking.
working on the RFP. So I was working on that with Debbie today, and we have another appointment we're gonna
Great.
carry on same time next week. Looking for models
Great.
on that have been done either in town or out of town on similar projects that we might be able to use to kind of make sure we have good guardrails on things. But basically the goal is going to be to get at the very minimum planning studies of alternatives, kind of carrying forward what I had put together as like planning studies, but those didn't have cost. But to add cost to that and add more technical detail to that way we can get a lot more eyes around town on it to kind of say this is for real. And people that may not be able to understand it from the kind of plan sketches I made that could see it more in a 3D and something that's more elaborate, we think will help kind of drive that decision forward. But the goal would be to kind of get it to the same number or similar number of alternatives, and then find a way to narrow it down so council can vote on eventually on one of those to move forward. We also talked about some other options with it, but we're going to study those a little bit further to kind of see which one will be the best to kind of get this project completely done. So that's the update on that.
And thank you, Stephen. Quick, do we have any kind of a working group? I can't remember. I think you're working with the historic preservation, but are there other people in town that are also part of your working group? And the reason I'm asking is because I'm sure, like the sidewalks, there's a lot of people with different opinions around town. And are we including any of those people?
Well, that's the goal. I want to get the RFP together. I'm going to need to get some help. I want to get especially people that looked at the Penn Place or worked on the Penn Place one before. And that's the one we're trying to track down as a model. It's a little bit similar to that whole effort to kind of see what was put in there for guardrails. But then I think solicit some feedback on kind of putting together the RFP. My goal with the once the initiatives come out is to not have it really be worked on by a small group, but have it just go out kind of like I did with the presentation of 3 options of goes out to anybody in town who wants to know. So I really want to find whatever way it is that we can really find out what's the real groundswell of support for one of the alternatives around town. I don't want it to be something where it's like a vocal small minority is really pushing for something they do or don't want. I want it to it's going to be there for a long time. So I want it to be something that's really got a lot of support, behind it. So,
all right. Well, think about how we can make sure we get people involved.
Yep, for sure.
Or get their voices heard, whatever. Okay, great. Great, Stephen. Thank you. Did I lose anybody? Can you hear me? Uh-oh.
I can.
Oh, good. Okay, thanks.
You sounded louder, actually. So
yeah, well, I don't know what's going on with these things. They're about to fall out of my ear.
microphone moved.
Stephen, do you want to give us a quick update on this 20-07, the Thrive Montgomery 2050?
Yeah, I'll go super quick on it.
920 right now, just for the record here.
Everybody. They're kind of loosely related. Thrive 2050 is the general plan for the county. They're looking to kind of what's the vision between now and 2050. It's an update really of a plan from I think the 60s even. Might even have been older than that. But it's a lot of generalities by design and those kind of things. But some of the generalities, there's a lot of pushback on it around the county from a lot of different municipalities. So like Andrea's been tracking this some, she's been feeding me a lot of information, and I've been joining some of the calls and reading a lot of the emails that are chatter around it. But it came down to there's one letter which is making it seems like a lot of good points in it, and I've been reviewing it, of what this coalition of municipalities would like to send off to county council, who has recently gotten the draft plan from the county planning commission. So the county council really has to enact what the county planning commission has put forth. And there are a fair amount of good reservations. There's 4 pages of this. I want to finish reviewing it, and I want to send it off to all of us on the town government to kind of see what everybody else's views are. But I can try to, if it'll help, I can put some notes with it to kind of explain bits and pieces of it. But what they're looking to see is if different municipalities are interested in signing on as a signatory to this. I know like Washington Grove is doing it and Chevy Chase and so on and so forth. So I think we had to decide, I don't want to go and do that by myself. I want to get everybody else's view. And so I'll email that around and we can see what, what everybody thinks
Is
about
there a
that.
draft letter? Is
There
there a
is,
draft letter yet?
Yeah, you can't see it,
Okay.
it's right on my screen. No,
I
yeah,
see the big
I'll-
map behind you.
yeah, it's on my other screen. That's why I'm usually looking this way. Yeah, but I'll forward that around, with some,
Okay, good.
some background on it, kind of see what everybody thinks. And I have a feeling we'll all be comfortable with kind of supporting some of these concerns. Like they're basically, a lot of it's asking to make sure they really study this stuff before they just go knee jerk and just do things because it sounds fashionable. So, and then also, I think one of the big things is to kind of, really see what's going to change over the next couple of years, because they're kind of, I think it's correct in here that they're pointing out that a lot of people are, they put together this plan, they did it before the pandemic, and a lot of things are expected to really change potentially for the long term, for decades after that. But they're kind of, this plan is really about all kind of old school, kind of, you take your metro to the center city 5 days a week, and it may not be the case. So they're, one of the big things I think it's great that they're pointing out is maybe look at this over 5 years and see what happens. Maybe we go back to that, maybe we don't. So
how much of this really will impact our town? And let me ask a different way, ask it a different way. Last I had heard was, about making these lesser cost homes, lack of a better word, within half a mile or so, or mile of the metro. I can't remember exact. But I didn't think that would involve, for any new development, but I didn't think that would involve an incorporated town. Am I right? I mean, it may affect county property within close proximity to a metro, but they wouldn't enforce that on the town if we were putting in new housing, right?
That's it's like a loosely, well, it's not loosely, it's a separate thing, but they're kind of related. So the other part of this, I might as well tackle them both. Like Thrive 2050 was the county planning board, or the county planning staff, they put together that study, and the county planning board approved that. That goes to the county council, and that's really more, it's a lot of really big concepts, like looking at what's going to happen over 20 years. And decades ago, it was done, it's basically got the wedges and corridors that DC has now, like where you have a lot of green space between, say, 270 and 95. So it's sort of that thing. But separately from even that, like one of their goals is to have what they call complete communities, and they want increased density. And those are more general goals put in that Thrive 2050 plan. But the county council in 2020, they enacted ZTA, or they put out the draft for ZTA, I think it's 20-07. And
that's right, it's on the agenda.
Yeah, and that's the one that is real, for real. So that would make it a zoning change, if it's approved right away, that would be doable to do what that proposes. So what they're proposing, and it's already in the draft, is anything within a half mile of a radius of a metro entrance. If it's an R60 zoning, which is Garrett Park Estates, you could build up to a 4 dwelling unit on a property that normally was just restricted to be a 1-family dwelling. Like you couldn't even build a duplex. Like you can do that in Wheaton in certain areas, but not like in Garrett Park Estates. But you would be able to right away do that. It's been suggested by a lot of activists and also the county planning board staff to extend that to R90, with that, and also to extend that to 1 mile, and that's us. So I think there may be one house in Garrett Park that's beyond a mile, but the rest of it is within a mile. So it's weird. I haven't seen anything since February on that, which seems a little strange. So they might be waiting to see what happens with Thrive 2050 to see whether they're going to go ahead with the CTA 2007. But I would be surprised if county councils all of a sudden going to change their mind on 20-07. So I'd be kind of surprised if they wouldn't, kind of push that through, which would make it where potentially, later this year or next year, you could build a quadplex on any lot in Garrett Park. If it goes through.
I just can't see how it, incorporated. I can get it on. I understand it for county the county properties, but
Can I make a-
county managed, but for
Can I
an
say
something?
incorporated town,
Yeah.
I don't know how you can enforce that.
We have somebody from a castle in Ireland, I think there, so,
Yeah, Scotland, but yes.
Scotland.
All right,
The Garrett Park overlay
John?
zone. Yeah,
John, are
Paul.
you speaking?
I
John
am, yes.
King, okay. Go ahead, John.
The Garrett Park overlay zone still is in effect. So just applying it to R90 will not directly apply it to Garrett Park. But there are only a handful of municipalities in the county that have zoning separate from the county control. The
Like
overlay zone
Rockville
is a
and-
county
yeah.
ordinance,
Yeah,
but it's like Rockville and Gaithersburg and a couple other old ones that aren't controlled by the county. The county zoning is authoritative in all these other municipalities, including the Chevy Chases and us. But the overlay
And
zone
we
does
can't
add a
preempt that
wrinkle
with our own, we can't preempt that with our own ordinance.
to it. No, we
code.
can't.
no, you can't, we can't say like what the use could be or could not be, but we
Mm.
can do still, as we all know, like the setbacks and lot
Yeah,
coverage
and we have a
limits. if
height.
it's- Yeah, that
Right,
would
and we have
still,
a height limit too, right?
yeah, our height limit's not different than the counties, but our lot
Yeah, but for a
coverage, res-
4-story,
yeah, it's gonna be tough to do it, but yeah, we have
can't, yeah.
20% coverage where White Flint Park has 30% coverage, so it'd be a little easier to build a fourplex on White Flint Park than
Flint.
here.
Gotcha.
But yeah, those things would still apply, but we can't say that you can't do the use. We could say how you do it with our ordinance. So,
Okay. Keep
So that's kind of-
your eyes on that, Stephen. Let us know, because we
yeah,
have to
I'll send
fine
everybody
tune
that.
something in our ordinance. Okay, where are we? Mario, what's going on with archives, and is Claire putting in, has she taken that other job now, or she's
Yeah,
still?
so this will be super quick. So I got trained.
Okay.
So I think we maybe have mentioned this in the last call. So Claire McDonald went back to her full-time employment at the end of last month, so just 2 weeks ago. So she's no longer working actively full-time or even part-time. So, but she is doing what she can on off hours and weekends and based on by request. But she's done a good job of putting together a bunch of volunteers to help her and help us. And so a lot of the same projects are still going on. The one that's coming close to conclusion is the one on the women's club from the 1930s, and they'll be posted online soon. Other than that, that's all I got. So
Okay,
super fast.
great. Thank you, Mario. It's just about 9:30. Andrea, do you want to speak to your financial and town manager report?
Sure, and just confirming, Claire's she's a contractor with us always, so she's still a contractor, but she's working
Okay.
more limited hours than before.
Okay.
Manager report, I won't repeat everything that's in here, but did want to just take this opportunity to point out that if anybody is looking at the monthly financial reports or looking for them, they are all on the website where the council meeting documents can be found. They're part of the manager's report and they go back to 2017. So you can look at all kinds of financial reports if you are interested in doing so. One other thing that I would add under our monthly financial report section that's not in my report is just a reminder that the June close will be coming up. And as you all know, who've been through this before, as we get closer to the June close and then following the June close, I will be sending you the email per our budget ordinance, giving you 3 days notification that I'll be moving funds from either within line items within a large category or moving from contingency to cover any overages that are in certain line items. So just be on the lookout for that. I will, I'll send that email with a bulleted list of where those things are. The only other thing on here, I would just point out, I think it's kind of a larger thing under town office and maintenance highlights, is that we have our RFP for refuse and recycling is posted. That's a big deal for us. The last time that this was competitively bid was a long time ago, so that it was needed to be done. Questions are due June 28th and responses are due July 12th. And I didn't know if anybody had questions on anything that was within the report. Okay. That's all for me then.
Got a quick question for Mario and for Andrea. Claire is on more of a limited schedule of supporting the town archives. Does she have any specific visiting hours for her office, different from what she used to have?
Yeah, she's
Or find
here.
out?
Yeah, she has an approved sort of flexible schedule for Fridays, having the ability to come in on Fridays, and then she's coming in on weekends kind of as needed and as she's able. And what she and I have talked about, that as long as it works for her, we'll continue down this path as long as it's working for Garrett Park as well. And we have sort of peeled off the town records piece, and so we're handling that more in the town office. So Claire's really focused on just the archive part with her limited time. And then, you know, we've both discussed if something changes for her, something changes for us, that we'll talk about it. But
Okay, so I thank you. I ask for the benefit of the residents who like to visit in case they do want to visit the archives. So is a Friday afternoon more likely than
I
not?
think she's, yeah, I think she's, they should make an appointment with her. So they should.
Right, it's not a guarantee. You have to check in first. It's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions for discussion, or are we good? Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. The meeting is adjourned. It's 9:33. Thanks for your patience. Right. Have a good night.